We've got the new Boss Waza Tube Amp Expander Core on the bench today. This is a streamlined version of their flagship Waza Tube Amp Expander, which I've featured on the channel before. Essentially, you've got a reactive load, an IR loader, a 30-watt power amp, an effects loop, and built-in effects on there so that you can take your existing tube amplifier, load it down, and either record with it or practice with it silently. You could also use this as a standalone power amp for your digital modeler to run it into a cabinet. You could use it to, say, take a very low wattage tube amplifier and amp it up. You could take your 100-watt Marshall like I'm going to do today and load it down and record it directly on here. If you haven't seen my video with the Tube Amp Expander, they've simplified a few things on here, namely the reactive load selections on here. So you've got a two-way selector here that gives you a stack or a combo option on here. So you've got two different impedance curves for the reactive load. Then you've got the air feel, which is coming from their Waza headphones, and they've been including in a lot of products now, which essentially is like a room simulation that's separate from the reverb block in there. You've got the same effects like delay, compression, and reverb built in. You've got the ability to load your own IRs in here. You've got an impedance selector switch on the back, stereo XLR outs. There is an expansion slot in here if you want to use the Boss Bluetooth adapter in here and run the editing app on a separate mobile device, which is actually what I'm going to do today. I really want to focus on the features in the app. I'm going to be using my old Marshall for this video today and just cranking out a bunch of filthy tones that normally would be at ear-splitting level, but today I can actually run at a very manageable volume and record directly. Let's go. The Tube Amp Expander Core has a USB-C connection, so you can connect it to the app on your computer, or you can use the optional Bluetooth adapter and run it on a mobile device. I'm using my iPad at the moment. So let's just have a listen to a very basic sound. I've got the Fender Meteora Ultra 2 plugged into my 1979 Marshall that I've had modified by the wizard, Jason at Headfirst Amplifiers. That is going into the Tube Amp Expander Core, and I'm using my free IR, as you can see on the screen at the moment. I've loaded it into both instances of the IR loader so that I can run it as a stereo cab with some stereo effects. We'll get to that though. Currently, I'm on the stack impedance curve. I'll swap over to the combo just so you can hear the difference. That they've gone and simplified that from the main Tube Amp Expander, where you could set separate low and high resonant frequency settings on there, and you had to consult a bunch of drawings and diagrams if you wanted to get the desired impedance curve. If you're a tweaker, I think that's a really strong point of that unit. If you just want to get a tube amp loaded down and into your recording software or to practice at low volumes, having a simple stack or combo setting on the reactive load is a great way to simplify all of that. I said I was running my main IR on here. Again, you can get it for free in the video description. If you were running a pair of different IRs, you can actually play around with the time alignment on them and balance out the levels on the left and right channel with the software. There's the Mix Assist feature and the air feel, which we'll get to in a second. Let's circle back around to those. But using the app, you can come through and edit the overall chain in here. So you can see that I'm going load in, I'm not using the compression, the delay, or the reverb at the moment. And you've got separate little chains here for your DI signal that's got the cab sim or the IR on it, and then the power amp and cabinet, the kind of reamper section over there. So let's do this. Let's go into the compression section, turn it on. We can come over and edit it over here. There are two compressors. There's a Rack 160 and a vintage Rack over here. They're both set up by default with an infinite ratio on there. So they're basically acting like a limiter. As you heard there's a built-in delay as well with a couple of really cool options. You've got a mono digital style delay, an analog style delay. You've got a model of the iconic Roland SDE 3000, and then there's a stereo and my favorite, the pan delay in there. Let's have a listen to the SDE 3000 in there. You can see you can set up filtering on here on the third page. I'm going to leave this at the stock settings. You can even invert the delay phase, which is pretty cool over there. But let's just go for, I don't know, something like a 300 millisecond-ish delay over here for a dotted style thing. Something like this. Now, of course, if you've got a delay with modulation, you've also got a chorus. So if we go for around 20 milliseconds of delay, fairly equal effect and direct level, a lowish rate, I've got the depth up around 55 on here. With the SDE 3000 model, you can switch that on, and now I've got a lovely sounding chorus on here. I'm going to go back to my pan delay and we'll add some reverb in a second. Something to note as well, if you want to enter exact times, you just press and hold the parameter you want to edit. So let's say I want exactly 444 milliseconds of delay over here, and I want the feedback exactly at 30. I can plug that in fairly easily right there. I also want the effect level down at around 50 on here. Let's go over to the reverb now, and you've got several different options in here. A few rooms, a few halls, a spring. I really like the plate. My favored settings are time around 1.5 seconds. A little bit of pre-delay, density and tone at the stock settings on there. You can come in and add a low cut and a high cut, which I really like as well. You can also set up the individual levels of the affected and the direct signal in there. I'm going to run the reverb effect level around 50 just for a subtle thing. You can get a similar effect by using some of the air feel, which we'll do after this. Let's hear it without and then with. I love how greasy that can get, and having this integrated into the reactive load, I think is a really lovely thing, because you could just plug headphones into the unit and have this all cooking. There is, of course, an effects loop built into the unit if you want to add your own effects processors to this. I'm also using the line EQ over here, and very straightforward settings. Like, I'm not actually really doing that much other than a high cut and a low cut, which is going to be built in here. You can see the high cut is at 8 kilohertz, and over on the first page, the low cut is at 80 hertz on there. Let's just hear this with and without. Again, this is just such a standard style EQ high and low cut that you'd use on just about any guitar track, and especially if you're used to using a digital modeler, you've probably come across this tip before, but this will take out some of the fizz. Another nice little quality of life feature that I like on there is that you can link the EQ that goes out to your speaker cabinet and to your DI, or you can have them separately. So if you wanted to apply a corrective EQ to either of them separately, you can do that, or you can just have the same high and low cut going to each of the outputs. I'm going to bypass this reverb for now on here. Let's come over again to the cab mic section, because we've got the mix assist and we've got the air feel section on here. You can adjust the air feel level on the front panel. But basically you have two different studio types over here that you can choose between. Let's just go for Studio 1, and then I'm going to turn the level up to around 30. I find this is most handy if you want just a little bit of space when you're playing with headphones or with in-ears and you don't want to use a reverb for that. You can save the reverb for more of an affected style sound and this more for your room replacement. A little goes a long way with that air feel. I kind of like Studio 2 on there and the level around 10 to 15. That is plenty. And again, if you wanted to use, say, the whole reverb with 5 seconds of reverb for a big, lush, clean sound, you could do that as well. Let's have a listen to the Mix Assist feature on here. Essentially, this provides you a couple of different presets to sculpt your core guitar tone in there without having to resort to going in and EQing it and applying extra compression. Basically, there's setting 1, 2, and 3. You can control the transient on there. I'm just gonna let you hear what it sounds like without it, and then with it, we'll go through each type, and I'll just play around with the transient. This is not a bad idea at all. If you are new to using a loaded down amp or you're not experienced with, say, using a digital modeler in a direct situation, this can really help you polish up the guitar sound without having to go down the rabbit hole that a lot of us have gone down. And I don't think it's a bad rabbit hole to go down because you definitely learn a lot about what makes a guitar sound a guitar sound. But if you just want to plug your amp in and practice silently or record silently, again, using these with a very limited feature set where you can just twist them until you think they sound good is a nice approach to that and a nice way of working around the option paralysis that can come with end of chain processing on there. There's a Librarian feature in here, so you can save all your different rigs. In the editor, you've got 10 rig slots, but you can also save those as a live slot, back them up on your computer and come through. What I've basically done with my rigs here is I've got a dry version, a reverby version, and then an all-in version with my main IR on there. So 3 rigs is probably enough for this particular setup where I'm using mostly this amp here with the load. But let's say you had a clean combo that you liked the sound of. You might want to have, again, another 2 or 3 little rigs saved for that. What I like about this is once it's set up on here and you've got it dialed in using either your computer or your mobile device, you can change the rigs, you can change the air feel and level the line out and the speaker out on the actual physical unit. So you can kind of disconnect from being tied to a computer to do all of these things. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the Tube Amp Expander Core in the comments section below. As always, a massive thank you to my buddy Ed and the entire team at Roland Australia for letting me borrow this one so I could make this video. If you like what I'm doing here on the channel and you want to support me directly, links to my Patreon and the music that I make with my band Ragdoll are in the video description. See you on the next one.